Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Friday. Yes, we made it to the end of the week. Today is August 22nd. So, what are we going to talk about today? I thought we'd talk about diagnostic because that's where it all starts. And so many get it wrong. I get it wrong. But it's the learning phase. So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, and yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Friday. You guys made it. August 22nd of 2025. Why are we talking diagnostic? Because diagnostic is probably the most important thing that you will learn. It's not how to fix something, it's how to diagnose something. And as you do it, you will get better, or you should get better, of what not to do. We already know the basics if you've been on my channel for any length of time. And Jason has helped me big time on this, and that is you need to start with compression, then spark, then fuel, and then air when you're dealing with the engine, right? What happens if you do everything right and you get that engine running only to find out you got a bad transmission and it's not fixable? Or it's fixable, but at what cost? There's steps. This is going to be a group participation, hopefully, because I'm looking for everybody else's input. Because I can tell you the way I do it, and where I've learned to try things. All right, and one of the ways that I learned to try things was I don't care if the lawnmower hasn't run in 2 years. What has worked for me in the past, and it takes most of the time two people, all right, is the use of good old carb cleaner, all right? And if you can get the engine to fire up, you can, with the carb cleaner, it doesn't mean that the engine is good. It just means it'll fire up. You can also check the transmission at the same time while it's firing on carb cleaner. And then you can also fire up the deck and see if that's going to kick in, kick out. At that point, I know that everything is pretty sure that it's going to work, right? So then I focus onto the engine. And I start doing the compression and then seeing where that is. And then fire. If it's compression, I jump over to the valves. If the valves need some tweaking, we had the Husqvarna that came in. It would fire on carb cleaner, but it wasn't willing to start on its own. So we threw the compression tester on it. And I say that because when we fired up on carb cleaner, we did check to see if it would move. And I did hit the deck quick to make sure it was going to fire up. So we went back to the basics and we threw the compression tester on both cylinders. And both of them were running pretty much the same, around 45, 46. So I told Claude, we need to do valves. So we went ahead and popped the valve covers off and kept tweaking and adjusting until we got one up to almost 125 and the other one up to 122. Good enough for me. Good enough for it to run. So we buttoned up the valve covers. Then we went to checking fire anyways. We knew we had fire because it was firing on carb cleaner. But I still throw the spark tester on both sides to make sure that I'm getting a good solid spark. If it's a weak spark, that means your coil's breaking down. And you might as well replace it while you're right there if you got one this week. And if you're not sure and that it might be the tester, swap the tester. And if the tester shows the same weaker spark on one side and then the bright light on the side that you had it before, pretty obvious, right? But I've seen testers go bad too. As you all know, if you've been with the channel, we drain all the fuel. I don't care if the customer says that they just put the fuel in it yesterday. We drain it. I need to start with something that I know is good. I don't know how many times we chased our tails with customers saying they put fresh 91 octane fuel in it, only to find out that there was still water in that fuel. They may have just put it into the tank, but it could have been sitting in a jug since last year. And you're never going to get that engine to run good with water in the fuel. And as much as I think of PRI-G, it's not a cure-all. Will it allow the engine to run? Yes, but not where it needs to run, where it sounds good. So we always go with fresh gas that we know is fresh, and we do treat all of our 5 gallons with the PRI-G. I get the big bottle on Amazon. It doesn't take a lot per 5 gallons. But I bought the bigger bottle because we go through a lot of fuel, with testing equipment. And then I use it on my own lawnmower, and then that runs good. Diagnostic and diagnosing is all about, with time you get experience. And with that experience, good or bad, you're going to get wisdom, right? So don't be afraid to make a mistake, all right? You need to start with compression. But do you? I guess if you're dealing with an engine, if you have no compression, there's no sense in checking all the rest of it, right? That's the way I look at it. And the only way you can check compression, I had guys tell me that you can check it with putting your finger over the spark plug hole, pulling on the recoil. In some cases, especially, chainsaws, lawnmowers, push mowers, if it's just nothing there, But on a push mower, it could have overhead valves, and that's your issue. But it's still compression related, right? If your engine can't build enough compression in that engine to fire correctly and to pull the fuel, it's not going to run right. That's why we use carb cleaner as not a fix-all. It's just to help with the diagnosis and to help with the diagnostic. If something runs on carburetor cleaner, it is not guaranteed to be a good runner that worth fixing, is what I'm trying to get to you. I've had guys that say, well, if it'll run on carb cleaner, it'll run on fuel. Well, not necessarily. It will run on fuel, but it won't pull the fuel. Well, the fuel pump pulls the fuel. I understand that, but still, if you don't have the compression in there, it's not going to pull the fuel up into the chamber. Carb cleaner fires at a higher temperature, which is easier to get. If you're going to use starting fluid, look for the one that's lubricated, because if you don't use and you get the starting fluid without the lubrication, it's going to dry up your cylinder walls and it's going to score it terrible. At least that's my understanding. If you have a different understanding, please post it in the comments, because we're all here to learn, right? So you got the compression tester and you're hitting it, and let's say you're in the 90s. If it's got overhead valves, you should still try to adjust to see if you can get that higher yet. And there's a ton of videos on how to do, the valves. You use feeler gauge, but you want to make sure that the engine's top dead center on each stroke, the intake and the exhaust. And then adjust each at a certain point when you get there. Some use a screwdriver and stick it in the hole, and when it comes up to the top, that's where they stop it and do the adjustments. You do what works best for you. All right? When you get into the Predator engines from Harbor Freight and some of these Chinese, sometimes, 60, 65 is where they run the best. I don't know how, but you can't get any higher than that no matter what direction you go with it. You can't get the compression up. And we were telling customers there for a while that it wasn't worth fixing until we realized that 60, 65, she will run, and that's kind of what they're coming in at. I know it doesn't make any sense. But again, add in the comments what you think. If you have any history with the Predators or the Chinese engines, are you getting high compression readings on them? Because we aren't. Once you have that done, then you can go on to the spark, and then we dump the fuel, and then the air. Air filters are cheap. They're like oil filters and fuel filters. They're cheap compared to what damage you could do if you left it in there too long. If you are a shop, usually 2 years. Usually every other year I'll take the air and blow it out. Usually I'll try blowing it out on the second year too, because some of my customers only use it once or twice a year because they have a bigger machine or what have you. All right, so part of the diagnostic is we've got the engine running now, which is great, right? Yes, but it's only part of the puzzle. Now we need to go to the next thing. Transmission. Will it move forward and backwards with ease? We've had some that we've had just add hydrostatic transmission oil. Not a big deal. We see a lot of hydrostatics. And we've had them where the rod on the back got pulled out so that there's no transmission, and had them show up trying to sell me their lawnmower because it wouldn't move. And I asked them, did you push the rod back in the back? I said, go home and try that. And then if it doesn't work, give me a call. And I usually get a call saying it worked. And they're all happy and they don't want to sell the lawnmower anymore. But that happens a lot. If you have an engine that has compression and no spark on either coil, and you put a new air filter on it and you got good fuel in it, pull the wires off from the coils, the ground wires, and if it will start, you have eliminated that whole engine. It's all electrical at that point. Whether it's a safety switch somewhere is not working the way it is, or you don't have the brake pedal depressed and locked in place, there's something there that's stopping the system. And I've seen it where hot wires would hit the actual frame and rub a hole through it and be grounding at times, so it wouldn't allow it to start. Yes, it takes a patience to, if that's what ends up going on, that you got to have patience tracing it one wire at a time to see where your issue is. Girls. So with the transmissions, that's the second thing we check to make sure that everything is working right. We've had on the regular ones where somebody had taken a tire off because it was flat. And on some of them, they have keyways in them in the regular riders, tractor style. And now get the keyway back in, or have it fall out and then we get a call that it won't move, that their transmission's bad. And the first question I ask is, have you had that tire off? And most often the answer is yes. Why? So, because there's a moon keyway that goes in there that locks that tire into place so that the shaft is turning the tire. If the keyway is out of place or gone, then the shaft's going to turn, but the wheel's not, because the keyway is not in place to turn the wheel. Those are easy fix. I keep a lot of the half moon keyways in stock for those guys. So we got to make sure it's going to move. Once we have it down so that it's moving, running, and driving, the next thing we step to is the deck. And what I normally do, if it hasn't run in a while, you first want to check underneath it and clean the deck while you're right there. Make sure all the blades are free. There's no wires hooking around where somebody ran over something. But once I've done that, I hop on, and with the engine running, if it's electric PTO, I pop it, shut it down, pop it, shut it down, and just keep letting it build speed. And then on the third one, pull it all the way out, and then just let her wind herself right up. And then I take her right up to full throttle. And I want to hear if there's any vibrations, any chatter, because we're still in the diagnostic mode of we're repairing, but we're diagnosing as we're going. The more you do it, the better you get, or the better you should get. And you're going to develop your own way to do it. I already know that, because Claude has his way, I have my way, probably Jason has his way, Amos has his way, Ed has his way. The list goes on. But each person, you have the same basic premise of what you're trying to accomplish, but sometimes we just do something a little different or out of step. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as it's working for you, all the power to you. It's if something isn't working and you keep getting, kicked in the ass, that, all right, maybe we should change and try something different. And that's how I've learned most of the things in my life, is trial and error. We talk, the more time you have, the more experience, the experiences aren't always going to be good. And I tell you, the ones I've learned the most from aren't the ones that turned out well. They're the ones that didn't turn out well at all. Those are my aha moments that I try to work on to make a better way of doing it than I did the prior one, because the prior one sucked. And it's like going to college. You pay for that education. You're running a shop. And if you're still a little green, you're going to lose money on some jobs. And when I say money, $1,500, $2,000 on some jobs, that's part of your education. Look at it that way. Don't look at it as a failure. Look at it as a teachable moment, a learning point from that point on. Do not do it this way, or this is what to look out for, because it will get you. It's not rocket science. It's just how well you learn from your defeats so that you don't do it over again. I think, Amos, you're the one that said, hitting your head on the wall and then expecting different results is, insanity. The same thing goes for doing repairs. If it's not working and you keep trying to get a different result, isn't that insanity? You need to change the way you're doing it to make it so that you're not having those issues, if that makes any sense. Again, this is a group participation. You can kick in here at any time and write a comment of certain ways you do it that makes it easier for you. And, Just because I'm the one here with a mic in front of me does not mean that mine is the perfect way either. I know it's not. I know that it works for me. But I hate to get too in depth because then I know I'm going to have people say, well, it doesn't work for me. And that's okay. That's what I'm trying to get across today is you don't need to do it like everybody else. Find your own way of doing things that works best for you. That's as easily put as I can put it. Don't be afraid to try something new. And don't be scared to get in and get your hands dirty. If you're just starting out, I showed in my earlier videos of doing repairs. Have a nice clean workspace, and if you start tearing something down, put the first thing you took off at the farthest away and keep working your way back towards that engine, all right? So when you have to put it back together, you know how to do it. You can just follow the steps back out through, right? Other ways are take pictures along the way. Everybody's got their phone. Take a picture of what it's supposed to look like, how this is supposed to look, how that's supposed to look when you're putting it together. And look at the pictures and see, does it look like what you have? Is it, oh, I got the one piece on backwards. That's why it's not working the way it should work. They're all tools in your toolbox. All right, so I'm going to start wrapping this up. In the comments, since this is supposed to be a group participation, what is your steps? What works best for you? Is it just get your hands dirty, get hands on? Because you can only read just so many books on how to repair stuff. The real experience is going to come from actually doing it. And if you can get lucky enough to pair up with someone that's older, that's getting close to retirement, where you can learn their skills. Yes, a lot of the skills that I learned when I was younger aren't prevalent now because most of it is electronic instead of just listening and diagnosing. We're leaning towards the plug it in and tell us where to look. That's the direction, or the battery direction. So on that note, you guys have a great Friday, and we'll see what goes on this weekend. You guys have a great day.